Yes, and Ted Cruz. And I suspect actually more Ted Cruz in a way than...
At 80, Helen Mirren is no longer interested in being polite about the past. For decades, the public saw her as unshakable, elegant, composed, seemingly untouched by bitterness. But behind that calm exterior were moments she never forgot. Not scandals, not rumors, but names, faces, and moments when power crossed a line. When Helen Mirren finally spoke about the people she truly hated, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of clarity. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't seek revenge. She simply told the truth about the men who dismissed her intelligence, humiliated her publicly, or treated her talent as disposable. These weren't personal feuds. They were warnings. Because when someone like Helen Mirren remembers you after 40 years, it's not because of ego. It's because you taught her something unforgettable about disrespect, control, and the cost of staying silent. And once she begins naming them, the story becomes impossible to ignore. Number 1. Michael Parkinson. When disrespect went live on television, Helen Mirren never planned to confront Michael Parkinson. She simply expected a professional interview. What she walked into instead was a reminder of how easily power can be abused when it hides behind a smile and a studio audience. Parkinson, one of Britain's most respected television hosts, didn't challenge her ideas or her career. He challenged her existence as a serious artist. From the very beginning, the conversation drifted away from her work. Instead of asking about her performances, her preparation, or her craft, Parkinson fixated on her appearance, her body, her sexuality. Questions were framed as jokes, but the intent was unmistakable. Diminish first, entertain later. Helen felt it instantly. Not anger, clarity. She realized this was not curiosity, it was control. A subtle reminder that no matter how accomplished she was, she could still be reduced to something decorative for public consumption. And what made it worse was the setting. Millions were watching, silence would look like consent. So she pushed back, calmly, directly. Without raising her voice, she challenged the premise of his questions. She refused to play along. And in doing so, she exposed something uncomfortable not just about Parkinson, but about an industry that normalized this behavior as harmless banter. Helen would later say that she never hated many people, but she never forgot that moment. Because Parkinson didn't just disrespect her, he demonstrated how easily intelligence could be dismissed when wrapped in charm and applause. Number 2. Michael Winner. Power without restraint. If Michael Parkinson represented public humiliation, Michael Winner represented something more dangerous, unchecked authority behind closed doors. Winner was known for his temper long before Helen Mirren encountered him. On set, he ruled through intimidation. Shouting wasn't an exception, it was a method. And respect was not earned, it was demanded. Helen recalled working under him as an exercise in endurance. Every idea she offered was dismissed. Every question she asked was treated as an inconvenience. Winner didn't critique her performance, he attacked her judgment, her intelligence, and her right to speak at all. The most disturbing part wasn't the volume of his insults, it was how normal they were to everyone else. Crew members stayed silent. Other actors looked away. This was simply how he worked. And Helen understood the message clearly. If you wanted to keep your job, you endured it. But endurance has a cost. Helen describes the hatred she felt toward Winner not as emotional, but principled. He represented a kind of power that thrives when no one pushes back. A man who believed authority excused cruelty. Who confused dominance with leadership. She didn't scream at him. She didn't storm off set. Instead, she learned something far more lasting, that respect must sometimes be withheld from those who abuse it. Michael Winner didn't scar her career. He sharpened her boundaries. Number 3. Ken Russell. The quiet erosion of dignity. Ken Russell was different, and in many ways, more unsettling. Unlike Winner, Russell didn't shout. He didn't openly insult. His weapon was something subtler: dismissal. He had a habit of talking over actors, reducing them to tools rather than collaborators. And for Helen Mirren, that erasure cut deeply. Russell was a visionary director, admired for his creativity and boldness. But behind that reputation was a pattern of treating performers as extensions of his ego. Their insights were irrelevant, their discomfort was inconvenient, their humanity was secondary. Helen recalls offering thoughtful interpretations of her roles, ideas shaped by training, instinct, and deep engagement with the material. Russell listened, nodded, and then ignored her completely. Decisions were made without discussion. Scenes were altered without explanation. Over time, the message became clear. Her presence was required, but her voice was not. What made this especially painful was Russell's refusal to acknowledge the impact of his behavior. There was no confrontation, no explosion, just a steady erosion of respect that left Helen questioning how many times she had been quietly dismissed before she noticed. She would later reflect that this kind of treatment is often more damaging than open hostility, because it teaches you to doubt yourself, to wonder whether your silence is justified, to normalize being overlooked. Ken Russell never shouted at Helen Mirren. He never had to. And that, she says, is why his name stayed with her. Number 4. Sir Peter Hall. When the system itself looked down on you. With Sir Peter Hall, Helen Mirren wasn't confronting a single man. She was confronting an institution. Hall represented the old guard of British theatre, brilliant, revered, and deeply hierarchical. Talent mattered, but obedience mattered more. And for a young woman entering that world, the expectations were clear. Listen, comply, and don't challenge authority. Helen challenged it anyway. She questioned interpretations. She asked for explanations. She treated the work as a conversation rather than a command. And that, she later realized, marked her as a problem. Hall didn't shout. He didn't insult her directly. Instead, he dismissed her contributions with polite finality, often praising male actors for the same curiosity he criticized in her. What stung wasn't disagreement. It was imbalance. Helen noticed how easily men were allowed to experiment, to fail loudly, to debate. Women were expected to execute cleanly, quietly, and without opinion. When she pushed back, she was labeled difficult, emotional, uncooperative. Years later, Helen would describe her resentment toward Hall as structural rather than personal. He wasn't cruel in the obvious sense. He simply upheld a system that told women their insight was secondary. That authority flowed one way. That questioning was a privilege, not a right. Sir Peter Hall didn't humiliate Helen Mirren. He taught her how power hides behind tradition. Number 5. Alan Parker. When artistic demands crossed the line. Alan Parker believed deeply in emotional authenticity, and that belief came at a cost. Working with Parker meant intensity, long hours, relentless scrutiny, and a constant push to extract raw emotion. For some, it was exhilarating. For Helen Mirren, it became suffocating. Parker didn't simply direct performances. He controlled them. He questioned her instincts publicly. He criticized choices in front of others. And when Helen tried to assert her understanding of a role, she was told she was overthinking, too sensitive, too resistant. The tension wasn't about results, it was about control. Helen felt that Parker crossed an invisible boundary, the line between demanding excellence and exerting dominance. Emotional pressure became a tool. Discomfort was reframed as dedication, and any resistance was treated as failure to commit. What made this experience particularly painful was how easily it was justified. That's just his process, people said, as if art excused emotional harm. Helen would later say that her hatred here wasn't loud or explosive, it was quiet, resolved, a decision never to surrender her autonomy again in the name of someone else's vision. Alan Parker didn't break her. He clarified something vital. Passion is not permission. Number 6. John Cassavetes. The moment everything changed. John Cassavetes comes last because his impact was immediate and permanent. Helen Mirren walked into an audition expecting intensity. Cassavetes was known for it. What she didn't expect was aggression so personal it stripped away all professionalism. Within minutes, the room shifted. His tone sharpened. His patience vanished. He didn't critique her work. He attacked her presence. Cassavetes raised his voice, questioned her worth, accused her of wasting his time, and then, without warning, he ended the audition, ordering her out. There was no explanation, no closure, just humiliation. Helen left shaken. What made this moment unforgettable wasn't the rejection. Actors are rejected constantly. It was the violence of the encounter, the sense that she had been deliberately diminished. That power had been used not to evaluate, but to dominate. She never worked with him. She never sought reconciliation. And she never forgot how clearly that moment revealed something essential. Talent does not protect you from cruelty. John Cassavetes represented the line she would never allow to be crossed again. The moment she understood that silence, in the face of abuse, was no longer an option, even if speaking up came with consequences. That audition didn't end her career. It ended her tolerance. At 80, Helen Mirren does not name these men out of bitterness. She names them out of clarity. Each encounter left a mark not because it ruined her, but because it taught her where power hides and how easily silence can be mistaken for acceptance. These were not personal grudges. They were moments when respect was denied, when authority crossed into humiliation, and when speaking up carried a price. What makes Helen Mirren's honesty resonate is its restraint. She does not dramatize the past. She does not ask for sympathy. She simply refuses to pretend that talent alone protects you from mistreatment. It doesn't. Only boundaries do. Her story is a reminder that dignity is not something you're given. It's something you defend, sometimes quietly, sometimes long after the moment has passed. If this story made you rethink how power operates behind the scenes of fame, take a moment to share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a situation where silence was expected but respect was missing? Leave a comment below. Like this video if you believe difficult truths deserve space. And subscribe for more untold stories from behind Hollywood's brightest lights. Because remembering isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your voice.